Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael and we're going to be getting right back into some more Reddit stories. If you enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Now, without further ado, let's begin. This story was posted by a user named Epic Fail Whale in the AITAH subreddit. The post is titled AITAH for refusing to pay my sister's wedding expenses after she called my child a mistake. So I, Deanna, am the eldest of 5 siblings, and I've taken on the role of the family caretaker for as long as I can remember. I helped our parents until their passing, and frankly, it's exhausting. Dad died of brain cancer 3 years ago, and it was heartbreaking to watch him deteriorate over time. Mom passed peacefully overnight after a long, hard battle with breast cancer earlier this year. Screw cancer. As the oldest, I just sort of became the de facto parent. I don't mind as I love my siblings, and it's kind of my thing to big sister friends and family a lot. I'm sort of the ship's counselor and financially help out my family. I don't mind because I work in tech, have a side gig doing art, and inherited land and money from mom and dad, so it's no real loss. A few years ago, I adopted my cousin's child, Charlie, who I will refer to by her nickname Decker, after my cousin went to prison for murdering Decker's mother in an alcohol and drug-fueled rage, which is too long a story to add here. It was a chaotic year of mourning, paperwork, and court hearings, but the adoption was finalized when Decker was 5. Now she's a happy, healthy 13-year-old who calls me mom. She's been in therapy since I could legally send her because she witnessed her mother's death, and I couldn't be prouder of how resilient she is. She's my girl, my rock star, my whole heart, and I literally call her my heart. Fast forward to my sister Clara's upcoming wedding. I was thrilled for her at first when she asked me to be her maid of honor. I cried tears of joy and offered for my wife Honey and me to pay for it. However, during a bachelorette dinner that I organized, Clara made a hurtful comment about my daughter, calling her a mistake, and saying that I shouldn't have taken her in. I stared at her and asked what she meant. She said it wasn't like I was supposed to have kids since I married to another woman, then added no hate or anything while laughing. She doubled down by saying that Decker is likely damaged and a handful. Guys, Decker is the sweetest child alive. Sure, she's a teenager, so sometimes she can be challenging or rebellious here or there, but when I say she is my whole heart, I mean it. She made us a family and turned our house into a home. She smiles easily, cries openly, and has the emotional intelligence I wish I had myself. She always asks, "How are you doing?" And she really means it. She's willing to listen to people, but she's a damaged mistake. I felt like a character in a dark, twisted episode of a sci-fi show. Defending my choice to adopt felt like fighting the Borg. It felt like I just wouldn't assimilate. I didn't laugh it off with my sister and her friends. Instead, I just stared at her in pure disbelief. I think she knew I was hurt because she quickly changed the subject. I said I'd better get home, paid for everything, including 3 more rounds, and went home to my family. My sister came over the next day to yell at me for leaving and cutting them off after the 3 rounds I paid for. She said I owe her a do-over for ruining the whole weekend because I can't take a joke. Honey, whom I of course told what happened, asked my sister to repeat exactly what she said about our daughter. My sister refused and kept calling Decker Charlie's child, and I was holding back tears. I told my sister that I wouldn't contribute a dime to her wedding expenses, that I would continue helping her pay her rent until she moves in with her husband, but I won't be in or pay for the wedding of a person who sees my child as a mistake. Honestly, I was ready to go full-on Jedi and sever that connection, but Honey helped me temper myself. My sister lost it, threw the can of soda water we gave her at me, screamed, "How am I supposed to pay for this?" I responded, "You have over a year, you can save up." She left, shoving Honey out of the way in the process, and blew up our sibling group chat. My other siblings are split. Some think I'm overreacting by cutting off funds for the wedding, while others agree that my sister crossed a line and needed a wake-up call. Now, I feel bad for my sister. I do love her and she is distressed by this, but I can't shake the feeling that standing up for my daughter is more important. Am I the asshole for refusing to pay for her wedding after that? Edit. I've been working on my work project at a local brewery and have been silently sobbing while reading the comments. Also, wow, so many comments. I was trying to reply to everyone, but honestly ran out of steam. I sent this post to my wife and am bracing myself to talk to Decker tonight. We want to ask her if her aunt has done or said anything cruel to or about her. I am wishing hard that she's just confused by our questions and remains oblivious to this shitstorm. I love my heart. I want her to always remain the bright, fun, loving, encouraging person she is. I don't want her to know anything about what her aunt has said. I texted my sister to ask if she meant this, if she really sees me, my wife, and our daughter that way, or was she just drunk and stupid and doubled down in embarrassment. That said, I don't want her near Decker anytime soon. I feel so lost. I wasn't planning on ever being a parent, and there is no Fing manual for this. What the F do I even do? Wish me luck for tonight. I will need it because if Decker tells us her aunt has been cruel to her face, I will have to hold my wife back from swinging on my sister. User I want to be an anemone said, if your sister couldn't afford her own wedding, then she shouldn't be a homophobic, child-hating monster. Decker didn't ask to witness her mother's murder or for her sperm donor to be a murderer, but frankly, that doesn't seem to be the core issue. The core issue is that your sister is homophobic. She wholeheartedly believes that only the most broken, unwanted, irredeemable child could end up with lesbians for parents, and likely seems to think that all the straight couples rejected Decker first. Decker being raised by you and Honey is what's wrong in her eyes. She's insulting you and your wife by insinuating there's no way lesbians could raise a healthy, functional child. This is an attack on your marriage and sexuality as much as it's an attack on Decker herself. If she hates lesbians to the point she wholeheartedly believes they shouldn't be parents, then why would she even want your money? If she despises you for your sexuality, does she even love and respect you? If she claims BS that she loves you despite your sexuality, call her out for being homophobic. NTA. User Apprehensive War said, first of all, you do recognize that your sister is homophobic, correct? Her comments about you never being meant to have a child in the first place because you're married to a woman are reeking of homophobia. If I were Honey, I would be completely unwilling to financially support your sister at this point. Secondly, everything she said about your child was not only beyond inappropriate and cruel, but is also a clear indication of jealousy. You are financially supporting her, you're paying for her rent, and now you're paying for her wedding. Your sister views you as an ATM, not a sibling. Her feelings toward your daughter are clearly driven by jealousy and a fear that your money won't be hers as freely because you're supporting your child. NTA. Update. Honey and I took Decker out to the local Oktoberfest celebrations. She had a blast, doing crafts, dancing to music, having beer in a pint glass, and generally having a great time. On the ride home, my wife broached the long-awaited topic. We asked her how she felt about Grandma's passing, and then discussed how everyone handles things differently. We asked if Mama or Mommy had ever been hurtful, and she named a couple of moments when we'd been snappy or wouldn't let her do things, but she said nothing else. When we asked about Clara, she got quiet. Honey just looked at me, but I was driving, so I said, "You can tell us anything, Goober, you know that." And she clammed up. I got my girls home, hugged my heart or Decker, and went to the den. About 2 hours later, my wife came downstairs and said Decker was in bed but not asleep and that I should talk to her. I asked why, and she simply said that Decker was willing to talk about it. I went up. Decker was ready for bed, in her PJs, reading. I sat down on the side of the bed and asked her how she was. She just said, "Mom told you, huh?" I told her I didn't know anything, and Decker then said that Clara makes her uncomfortable and says hurtful things. When my wife and I weren't around, Clara would call her the lost puppy or the stray, and once Decker remembered Clara telling her to her face, "You're not real family," adding that once Honey and I get a real child, we will dump her. I can't explain the rage, the absolute, total, and complete red I saw as my daughter broke down, telling me that she behaves so well and is so obsessed with grades so she can prove she is worth loving, worth keeping. After calling my wife, we sat Decker down and told her that she is the best thing that ever happened to us. Even if we do have more children, she is our firstborn and our love. I cried and held her, telling her she was my whole heart and that nothing will ever change that. She saved us, and I am so proud of her and us and all we've grown to become. I can't ever stop loving her, neither can her mom. We love her more than air. That will never change. Then I explained that Auntie was wrong for this. Auntie is jealous of her, jealous of how much we love her. Auntie needs help, but we can't give that help right now, so she won't be around for a while. Decker asked us to stop talking to her like a child, so I was blunt. She's my sister and I love her. You're my daughter and I love you more. I told her my sister was wrong and hateful. I'm sorry that Decker didn't feel she could come to either of us about this, but she can. Every time. Anytime. We will choose her. Always. Decker asked me if it was her fault that I hate Clara, and I told her hate is a choice. I don't hate Clara, I do love her, but sometimes loving a person means you correct them. Actions have consequences. My daughter got quiet and handed me her phone. Clara had been texting her awful things since she left my home. I can't even type them because I want to throw things, but it's when I read my sister texting my teenage daughter, "Go tell your so-called mom like a snitch and prove me right." I took a screenshot and texted it to myself. Decker fell asleep around midnight and my wife and I went to bed. I texted my sister the screenshot and said, "You come into my home as my sister and treat my child like this. No, mom and dad would be ashamed of you. This is not how you treat any child, let alone your own niece. I have loved you for as long as I can remember. I know you were not raised to treat children so terribly, but as of now, you are not welcome in my home. You will not speak to or contact me, my wife, or my child. I will give you the money for October, Clara, but November on. That's your responsibility. I am no longer going to help. I'm sorry. This breaks my heart. But you crossed a serious and unforgivable line. Decker is my daughter. I am her mom. Do not doubt me here, and I want to be clear. If you ever come sideways at my family again or contact my daughter at all, I will take legal recourse. From today on, we are low contact. If you try to make this into a bigger issue, it will be no contact. Update 2. I kept my promise to my wife to wait before reacting. She knows me best and knew I was prepared to go nuclear. Turns out I needn't have bothered. Let me clear up a couple of small details and misconceptions I've read. I am the eldest of the siblings. Mom and dad had been sick for years on and off, so to those who think I've just started taking over as some weird power trip or something, no. I've managed their finances, maintained their properties, and taken care of all their affairs before either of them passed. Dad simply wasn't mentally able after a while, and mom never had a head for that sort of thing. Yes, I was mostly left in charge of my siblings growing up. Both my parents had businesses and worked often 7-day weeks. I cooked dinner and helped with homework and whatnot. I'm aware that's not very normal, and I already know some of you will call my parents terrible for this, but they simply didn't know better. I won't hate them for any of it, and as much as it caused me some negative effects, it also made my siblings feel safe. I'm proud of being able to protect them and be there for them when they were young so they didn't feel how I felt. And yes, I am also in therapy. I was the sole caretaker of my parents when they passed. The reasons are complicated, but the short of it is dad got verbally abusive towards the end and mom got severely depressed and blunt. They were a challenge to deal with on the best of days. I hold no ill will towards them, but there it is. My siblings didn't want to be around them. Dad was hurt and changed his will. Mom followed suit. For those telling me I am rewarding Clara by paying for literally this month and that I'm not a real mom or a bad mom by loving my daughter's tormentor, I'm envious your world is so black and white. Rent is literally due today and the money was already in transfer to her via auto banking. And Clara isn't getting rewarded. She is remaining housed. But from now on, she's on her own. Clara and I used to be pretty close, but she did get distant around the time Decker was adopted. I didn't know exactly why, just that the new dynamic was a challenge for her. I know she hates Charlie and considers him evil and irredeemable. She had a really hard time losing our cousin-in-law, Decker's biological mother, as they were very close, so I assume her issues stem from this. I inherited the majority of everything, though my siblings got sizable sums. 3 got all but one of the businesses my parents owned, and everyone got trusts. Clara spiraled after mom passed and had a mental health crisis. Before we got her help, she traveled, drank, and gambled away her entire inheritance. Long story for another time. I didn't have a moment to cool down and wait until today to give myself a chance to make a level-headed decision regarding my sister. Clara has spun the tale that I am jealous she found a loving man and am withholding mom and dad's money from her. She gave the perception that I was the one abusing Decker, putting her down and telling her she isn't my real daughter. That shut down when I sent my text a couple of days ago. Yesterday, Clara was on my doorstep. She was crying and begging for me to let her in, but my wife and her friends were inside, and I made it clear I don't want her near my family as she emotionally abused my daughter and physically harmed my wife. I told her to leave or I would call the police to have her removed. I was going to call the police anyway because I told her never to come to our home again, and there she was. There's a reason I said this in text so I could, in an event like this, show them clear as day that she would know she is unwelcome. Clara started to beg, saying she would apologize to Decker and that she was drunk and upset and made mistakes. I could tell she was drunk, or high, or something. I told her it's not a simple mistake to bully a traumatized teen girl and make her feel unloved and unwanted by her own family, and to text her that she is worthless and expendable. I got angry and just started to raise my voice. I don't know when I started to yell, but I did. I just lost it. She's a cold-hearted, awful, self-serving brat, spoiled beyond belief to being so delusional that this all would just go away, that she's entitled to the money my wife and I make, that our parents gave us after all she did. You don't ever hurt my child. She's lucky I have a head to keep my hands to myself, and luckier still, Honey isn't out here because she certainly would not. So go the F home. Clara slapped me across the face and called me a and a traitor, saying that I choose that demon spawn of a child over her, that I love Decker more than my own real family and turn my back on her this way. Honey must have been right by the door because before I could make a very bad choice, she had yanked me inside, told my sister that she had 60 seconds to screw off, and slammed the door closed. Clara left quickly, but we still called the police and handed over the footage from our property cameras of what happened, as well as the texts from our phones. Clara went ballistic over text, telling me awful things, ending with her hoping I'd take my own life and she would celebrate. Absolutely unhinged, awful stuff like that. I blocked her, sent every piece of footage in a Google Drive, and dropped the link in the sibling group chat and sent it to Kevin, her fiance. I then sat down and cried myself into a fit before Decker came home from practice. I put on my mom face for her and made sure she did her homework. Then I went to the den and called my aunt, Decker's biological grandmother, and told her what happened. My aunt told me that Clara is renewing her conspiracy that I'm harming Decker and that I need to be careful because she suspects Clara is having some sort of mental break and might do something crazy. Honey and I have spent this whole day working on a request for a protective order from her, making sure Decker's school knows no one is to pick her up but us, and getting a lawyer because I think legal action is needed here. I told my eldest of the brothers that Clara needs help and asked if he could check on her because she might be as much a danger to herself as she is now presenting to be to me and my family. He got quiet and said, "Can't you handle this?" And said this drama was too much and he's busy. I was so stunned I just blurted out, "Are you kidding me right now?" before I just hung up. My other sister is now over helping me deal with this. My other brother has gone to see after Clara but says he will only make sure she hasn't hurt herself. Beyond that, she can get wrecked for what she's done. Kevin called me and said he went through the Google Drive and begged me not to call the police on Clara. He said that she has been having a really bad time, has struggled with drinking, and has been stealing his medications. He's trying to get her help, but if she gets arrested, he doesn't have the funds for bail or any legal help. I told him it's too late. The police have been called and he needs to get her into some sort of rehab or something. He asked for our help to pay for a facility he was thinking of, and I told him to keep her away from me and my family. He started to cry and told me I'm an awful sister, that I don't care about Clara and her struggles, and that she's just lost and he's underwater trying to keep her from going off the deep end. I didn't reply after that and have just been sitting around the house waiting for the police to call back, trying to get my crying out of the way before Decker comes home from school. I feel wretched and terrible because no matter what I do now, it will just never feel right. I was to look after them all, and now my sister is this lunatic hell-bent on burning my life down, and my brother is alarmingly just indifferent to it all. I am used to being the one that holds the family together and handles things, but I don't feel like I can handle anything anymore. Update 3, too tired to do the song and dance, so if you want the rundown, it's on my account. I think I just desperately need to write this out. We went no contact with the whole of my side of the family about a month and a half ago, aside from my other sister. Decker has been in therapy, and frankly, so have I and Honey, both individually and in bi-weekly couples therapy sessions. A lot has changed. I didn't realize how much the abuse I suffered at the hands of my uncle really affected me. His reaction to Decker never bothered me or really had a stake in my emotional or mental state, but rather that my mother made me forgive him and be polite when he was around. It's always been that way. I was the eldest, so I turned the other cheek until I had no cheeks, then I turned the old ones. I was never really permitted to have negative emotions or get angry. This situation with Clara blew a lot of dust up, and Honey and I started to have issues. She noted how reserved I tend to be, and even with her, I struggle with asking for what I want or expressing displeasure. I shut down or deflect. It sucks to learn this about yourself when the rest of your world is falling apart. Clara was arrested for my assault and ended up doing a mental health program for a month rather than getting a conviction. As such, her record is clean of that from what I understand. It was hard cutting her and the others off. My other sister was the one keeping me up to date on everything. Clara got out a while ago. She's been trying to get in touch every way she can. She got a new number, email, Facebook, even TikTok. She's written and mailed numerous letters. I am exhausted because I hate cutting everyone off. It's so isolating. Always having my siblings around and now only really having one sister, so suddenly is really lonely. I focus on Decker and Honey. Honey seems happier overall. She's dancing in the kitchen again, is more affectionate with me, and is more excited to go out and do things. And Decker is also happier. We focus less on her grades and praise her more for her sense of kindness, her stick-to-it attitude, and more. She's more open with me in particular. She talks about crushes and friends more now, shares about the intricate life of a teen. It's really very cute. I'm not so okay, but my family is safe and happy, which is what matters. Clara's fiance Kevin reached out to me 2 days ago. Clara has been released and has been out for about a week, but she still has outpatient rehab to complete. Kevin says it's encouraged for her to have family support. He also says she isn't doing well. She started talking about self-harm, and she confided in him that the same uncle who abused me also abused her. He's begging me to talk to her and help her through this. He keeps reminding me of how she was before all this and how close we were. Calling what we had close may be incorrect because based on what I'm learning, our relationship was toxic from the start. I was an enabling sister to a manipulative and narcissistic one. I held my ground and spoke to Honey, who agrees I should maintain no contact and block Kevin, simply relying on my other sister for information. But I can't help feeling guilty. I wish Clara well. However, I can't risk cracking the door open and jeopardizing the well-being of my family. I think I just feel alone. I know I can't have her in my life anymore. It just hurts. Sorry for the delay in updating, and to those who have been gentle or at least firm but fair with me in my private messages, I thank you. There was never a manual on how to be a good wife or mother, and I have lived an existence of feeling so out of my depth. I appreciate the support. This next post was made in the same subreddit by a user named Character Ad. The post is titled AITAH for interfering in my cousin's relationship with her ex-husband, which goes against my father and mother's judgment. I need help and a neutral perspective, as everyone I know in real life who is aware of this issue is biased in some way. My cousin was married to her ex-husband for 10 years after they graduated college. They have 2 children together, ages 6 and 9. From before they got married, our family didn't approve of the marriage, and rightfully so. He was a bum who couldn't keep a job for more than a year, and he was a drug addict. We didn't know about the drugs back then. We found out a few years into the marriage because she didn't tell us and was blinded by love, thinking she could fix him. Their marriage was toxic. She had to work, take care of the kids, and manage the house while he was in and out of jobs. Like any addict, he stole her paycheck and sold their furniture to fund his habit while she struggled to feed her kids and pay rent. He cheated on her multiple times, not physically, but through emotional cheating, chatting, and lying to other women. Still, she forgave him. The turning point came in their 8th year of marriage when he physically abused her. She tried to file for divorce, but he kicked her out and took their kids to his parents' house, who are even worse than him. She caved and went back after 2 weeks without her children, despite us telling her we could help get her kids back and file for divorce through family court. 2 years later, he hit her again, but this time she fought back. According to their neighbors who separated them, she turned into Conor McGregor and was on top of him. Thankfully, they divorced a week later, but only after agreeing not to ask for alimony and for her to leave the rental apartment. We gladly accepted. She moved in with my mom and dad with her kids, as she was basically homeless and penniless. All she took from the divorce were the clothes on her back and her kids' clothes. After a few weeks, we helped her rent an apartment near us, paying the rent for 3 months until her social services payments kicked in and she could work again. We furnished her apartment from the ground up. She filed for child support, but it took 6 months before she got an appointment with the court, which ordered him to pay £1,900. As expected, he didn't pay a cent. It's been a year and 3 months since the divorce, and she and the kids are thriving and happy. He hasn't contacted the kids or paid any child support, which has now accumulated to $28K. That was until last night when he sent her a long text from a new number, apologizing and asking for forgiveness. He acknowledged that he messed up badly and said their relationship was over, but he wanted to see his kids and support them financially. He claimed he didn't want his kids to grow up hating him or thinking of him as a useless father. She responded with a long message berating him, reminding him that it's been more than a year since he even asked about the kids' well-being, let alone whether they had a roof over their heads or enough to eat. She made it clear that she and the kids are happy and have moved on. She vented about the entire marriage and how he treated her and the kids. He just took it. She told him that if he wanted to see the kids, he would have to go through the court and ask for visitation, which he refused, saying he wouldn't ever drag her and the kids through the courts again as it would traumatize them further. He said even if she wouldn't allow him to see or speak to them, he wouldn't take her to court ever, but at least asked her to give him her bank information so he could support them financially. She blocked him after telling him to talk with her family, as she had nothing else to add. The issue now is that my father and mother are adamant that he has to go through the court. They believe he can't change, calling him a bum and a drug addict, saying he always will be. If he does go through the court, he'll be awarded one supervised visit per month at a CBS center because he basically abandoned them. After the kids turn 14, they can ask for more visits since my cousin has custody. Visitation is separate from child support, so even if he can't or doesn't pay, he'll still be awarded that one visit. I have a different take. What if he really has changed? The kids need a loving and supportive father, which he wasn't, but they did love him. From what I saw, the divorce hurt them a lot. My parents are mad at me for going against their judgment, saying they have more life experience and that I'm young and naive for thinking he can change. Most people in my life are in the screw him, let him go through the court camp. Only a few, including me, think we should meet him and see if he really has changed. If he has, it could be in the kids' best interest emotionally and financially. My cousin wants what's best for her children, but won't go against whatever we decide, so any advice and perspective is appreciated. User the Vinaya said, people can certainly change, but addicts in particular are exceptionally good at faking changes for periods of time before reverting to old behaviors just to get something they want. Their biological reward systems have been damaged by drugs, and they are accustomed to instant gratification rather than long-term investment-based rewards. They have to work much harder than a random non-addict to see long-term plans come to fruition. The main point in this situation is that none of it is your business. It isn't your place to get involved, and you certainly have no right to defend him. You aren't close enough to make any determinations at all. I don't agree with your parents' position here, but you have even less to work with than they do. Stay out of it. Everyone sucks here except the cousin and her kids. User Relin said, you can mediate to the extent that you can be the one to hear him out and carry any money he wishes to pay for his kids to their mother. You can be the tongs through which she handles him. But if you pass along messages to your cousin or in any way give this addict more access to her or her kids, that would be an asshole move. If you want to meet up with the guy, hear him out, and be the person reporting back to your cousin that you're monitoring his situation and there's nothing for her to worry about at the moment, that's one thing. If you meet up with him and then carry his thoughts, wishes, messages, or requests back to her or her kids, that would make you an asshole. It would be helpful to her and her kids, perhaps, to have someone watching their social perimeter. It would not be helpful to foster some kind of reconciliation between them and this addict.